What's up, guys? How's it going? Ryan here, back with you this week with another episode of This Week in Hearthstone. We got some good articles today, about 4 to 5 topics of various things to cover. But before we get into it, just wanted to let you guys know of a little bit of information. So we are officially now on Spotify, which is really awesome. The link to the Spotify will be in the show notes, which you can find in the description of the audio track, or if you're watching the VOD, will be down below in the description below. It's pretty easy, though. If you were to go to podcast on Spotify and search This Week in Hearthstone, you should find it and should show a description and title saying that it is me. And then from there, what you can do is you can follow the podcast. And basically what this will do is that every time an episode is updated, Spotify will notify you. If you don't have notifications on, what ends up happening is you will, every time you go to podcast to listen to it more, it will notify you then that you have a new episode to listen to. So go check that out and go follow us on Spotify. We're still waiting for iTunes approval right now. So keep that in mind, that it's going to take a little bit to get that all set up and going. But once it's on there, we will let you know. Just an FYI as well, we are also on the other various podcast networks, but we're going to be pushing Spotify and iTunes mostly, since those seem to be the biggest, podcast catchers out there. But if you guys also have Anchor or Stitcher or Pocket Cast or whatever, we are most likely on there as well. Also wanted to just thank you guys for allowing me to continue to do this podcast and continue to listening to me rant and ramble. So if it is your first time here, guys, just a brief introduction once again for some of the new listeners. Probably do this for the next few episodes or so. This is This Week in Hearthstone with me, your host, Ryan Kubo. I'm the only one that hosts this, and I made this podcast so that I could just kind of go over news and events that have been happening on the world of Hearthstone and kind of catch you up with those type of things. A lot of podcasts, I feel like, when it comes to Hearthstone, are very good, and I really enjoy them, and I listen to them as well, but sometimes they go on for a very long time, sometimes 2 to 3 hours even, and I just can't sit through and listen to it, and a lot of it is a lot of people on them, or 2 or 3 co-hosts, and it gets very jumbled up and confusing and all that stuff. So the purpose of this podcast is, if you just want the blanket statement of what is going on in the podcast, or in Hearthstone, I should say, this is the podcast to listen to. I try to go through the articles pretty concise and detailed, but at the same time trying to keep it short for people who just want kind of a TLDR of Hearthstone. So most episodes here will run you about 40 minutes to an hour. And lastly, before we get started, for any of the audio listeners out there, we do live stream the podcast every Thursday at 10 p.m. PST at twitch.tv/Ryan Kubo, RYANKUBO. If you do want to check out, hang out with the chat while the podcast is going on and being recorded. And then audio is uploaded the next day on Friday. It takes about 24 hours for that audio to start, or to be notified and uploaded, I should say. All right. So with all those intros out of the way, and with all that being said, let's jump right into the news. So the Hearthstone Championship Tour Fall series just ended, actually, this past week. In last episode on Thursday, I briefly mentioned that it was going to be happening, and it finally happened. Now, if you guys don't know anything about competitive Hearthstone, there's pretty much 3 to 4 playoffs every single year, and those playoffs go into a championship, and it's kind of confusing because the way they do it is it's broken up by regions. So usually playoffs happen on over a 3-week period, right? Asia, EU, then NA usually, and then what ends up happening is the top 4 from all of those end up going to the top 16, I should say, because I believe other regions like China are involved in as well, and they have their own little tournaments going on and stuff like that. They all go to a championship, and this is the fall championship that just happened. Now, the top 4 players from the fall championship end up going to Worlds, which is the Hearthstone World Championship. That usually happens around December, late December, usually early January. At least that's when it happened. last year, and then that's when a world champion is crowned. And then a few months later, there's about a 1 to 2 month dead period around March or April, we get the new announcement of the next expansion, and the new year of Hearthstone begins. So, like I said, the Hearthstone Championship Tour 2018 fall just happened for the year of the Raven, and we have a bunch of people moving on to the World Championship. Now, it's kind of strange and weird how the fall championships happen. So I know for a lot of people who don't really know anything about Hearthstone, it kind of is confusing. There is a group stage which ends up happening, and the top 2 players from those group stages move on to what would be the playoffs, and then from there, or a top 8, I should say. But then the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals happen. Now, it's kind of weird because the people who end up getting into the semifinals, even if they're eliminated within the semifinals, they still are guaranteed a spot at the World Championship. So it's kind of funny because when the finals happens, or when the semifinals and finals happen, really, all that's really happening is they're accumulating a little bit more money and also Hearthstone Championship Tour points. So the people that are moving on to the World Championship this year, now keep in mind we had people from EU, Asia, and America, and various other parts of the world, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get one Asian representative, one EU representative, one American representative. But we have Bloody Face, we have Blood Trail, Just Saying, and Language Hacker. So 3 of those people being from the NA region, Language Hacker being from Canada, and Language Hacker is actually the one who took the whole thing. So I believe the way that it works is that in the semifinals and finals, depending on your placements there, it really depends on your seeding, and that also is seeded from the people from the previous championships as well. So for me personally, I voted for Just Saying. I've been a pretty big fan of his, and I've enjoyed his content for a while. He used to do these things called Watchstone, where on the last day of the season, he would literally just spectate people and see what placements they ended up getting. And I really enjoyed those type of streams that he had, and so I voted for him, and he ended up making it, which is pretty cool. So I got an easy 3 packs from him. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, and as the podcast goes along and obviously news events happen, I will be announcing these things. But you're able to go to the official Hearthstone website, not now, of course, since the event is already over, but in the future, when a championship happens, and you can vote for one person to be your player. And depending on how well they place, they will guarantee some packs. So I believe if they advance through the group stage, it's 1 pack, and then quarterfinals 2, semifinals 3, finals 4. And so Just Saying was the person a lot of people ended up voting for. I think him and Tyler, Outfit of the Day, OOTD, were the 2 people. And yeah, Just Saying was able to get them 3 packs. If you guys check out the show notes below as well, you can see the decks that they were running. But you had a lot of Druid, a lot of Shaman, and a lot of Hunter, I felt like, and a lot of Warlock too, were like a lot of the people's decks. With, here and there, a lot of people having, the rogues, mostly Odd Rogue and Quest Rogue as well. So, congrats to them for going. They basically just get the chill now until January, basically, right? If they do stream, they'll be streaming and chilling, but they don't really have to worry about placements or being pressure of advancing and getting those ladder points. So it was all pretty cool. The VODs are also on Play Hearthstone. They're quite long, about 7 hours each for days 1 through 4. And like I said, you can get these, you can get all this information, get these decks and VODs and everything in the show notes below. For anyone asking as well, the packs will be awarded about 1 week later from the time of championship. So as of this recording, they should be actually available either tomorrow or possibly Saturday, since Friday was when the championship started. Or last Friday, I should say, was the day that the championship started. So, congratulations to them. It'll be really interesting to see how people do this year at the Hearthstone World Championship. First year, we had an American win. Then we had Ostaka and Pavel win, which are 2 EU players. And then last year, we had Tom, which I'm going to forget the numbers at the end of his name. But yeah, he ended up, he's from the Asia region, and he ended up winning the first Asian to win the Hearthstone World Championship. So NA, You know, I'm gonna root for NA. I'm located in NA, so hopefully they can bring it back. And there's some pretty strong competition. So yeah, that is it for the Hearthstone Championship. Moving on though, let me just take a drink of water right here. The Sir Anoyotron bundle is out. This is something that I talked about, and this will probably segue into our next topic, which is the Hollow's End event that is currently happening in Hearthstone right now as well. If you don't know, Sir Anoyotron is the new Paladin hero that is going to be around for a limited time from October 17th to October 31st. This is an alternative Paladin hero, like I said, and like his name suggests, he is Anoyotron from the card Anoyotron. It's a pretty funny card and hero to get, I will say. I ended up purchasing it on day one. Some quick things and information about that before we get into my opinions about it, though. So it comes in a bundle that's $20 for 20 Witchwood packs and the hero. It sounds a little bit expensive. I think last podcast episode we were talking that it would probably be something around $30. So for $20, I'm actually surprisingly happy with the price. Just for a comparison, normally $20 in Hearthstone gets you 15 packs, and that's it. So this bundle for $20, same price, gets you 20 packs and the hero. The hero itself is pretty troll, very well animated, and yeah, it's going to BM a lot of people. Its intro into the game is even pretty ridiculous. It basically swirls around and blows trumpet horns and stuff like that and garners a bunch of attention from the enemy player and from yourself. And then when it places down, it makes like squeaking horn sounds. Also, its hero power is when you click on the hero power, it ends up just poofing out like colorful confetti and using the hero power as well. If you guys didn't know, on my Twitch stream, I've been trying to farm for Golden Pally, which hopefully I'll have by the end of this month, possibly. So I'm about 140 something wins, so you know what card I'm going to be, or what hero I'm going to be using until I get Golden Pally. And then we'll switch to Uther, my boy Uther. But overall, I think some of the things that people are complaining about the hero, and this is just discretion if you do end up buying it, but there's also videos out there that you guys can check out and see of the hero itself, is that all of his emotes are basically just hello, just in different forms. I don't believe that they made a new voice actor or hired a new voice actor for this. I think they literally just took the Neutron, like hello, hello, and just either made it longer, made it shorter, changed the pitch of it, etc. So it just says hello. It's a pretty BM type of hero, but if you're a completionist or if you really like the hero, you should definitely get it and check it out. Once again, that hero is only available during this Hollow's End event, and knowing Hearthstone, they have never really brought back older heroes that they used to sell. So if you are like 60% thinking of getting it, you might want to just get it because you don't know if it will ever return to the shop. We've had other heroes that have come and gone from the shop as well that have just never returned or whatever. So like Khadgar, for example, would be a thing that was a promotion for iOS and a charity that they ended up doing, and that never returned back to the to Hearthstone or to iOS in general. So just keep that in mind. I think except in like a couple of other regions, but it's been very limited quantities of him. So just keep that in mind, that the hero will be available from October 17th to October 31st. And from there, we don't know what's going to happen. So go pick that up for $20 if that's something that you wanted to check out. Next up, we have the initial thoughts on the Hollow's End event. So the Hollow's End event has started. We talked about this briefly in the last episode, and these are kind of just my initial thoughts on it. So a few things that you guys should know about the event. It's part of, obviously, the bundle that came out that we just briefly talked about earlier. So with it came a couple of things from it. We ended up getting dual class arena, which we briefly talked about, and I have done a run on stream. If you guys have not logged in and you for some reason had an arena run that was already currently going, that arena run will automatically expire and get you a free ticket to the arena. So keep that in mind so you don't get a disadvantage when playing against dual classes. And then at the same time, everyone who logs in from the 17th to the 31st will get a free arena ticket for dual class arena. So I am not a good arena player at all. I think I have under 100 wins, and my average is probably something like 2 to 3 wins. I'm not good at arena at all. So, but you know what? You get a free pack, and you get some free gold or dust, depending on how well you do, right? So that's pretty cool. I would definitely say to just go and do it. You might as well. The arena itself, we mentioned last week. It's where you take where you get to pick a hero out of 3 randomly given to you, and then you get to pick a hero power randomly given to you, and then those hero powers are combined with the hero, and then those cards that you can draft are also combined. So, for example, if you choose Shaman and then you choose Rogue, you get a Shaman with the Rogue hero power, as well as you can now draft Shaman and Rogue cards. I believe I went like 1 in 3 or something like that on my first thing. I was listening to some people and talking to some people, and it almost seems like what you should just do is literally just go like whatever hero is like really, really good for the cards, like possibly Warrior, right? And then just try to get life tap because card draw is so strong in the game. But yeah, I also have another arena run that we are currently doing that I need to complete still. But yeah, get into that arena run, go do it. It's pretty fun, and like I said, it's free if you log in from the 17th to 30th. Next up, part of the Hollow's End is that there will be 2 brawls that are Halloween themed. I should also mention before we get too deep into it, I completely forgot about this. If you log in, you also get a Golden Witch's Cauldron, which is an epic card. That's the 0/4 card where if you play a minion, or if a minion dies, you get like a shaman spell. And yeah, disenchant that if you want 400 dust as well. So I should mention that as well. Next up, though, we have the first new brawl to Hollow's End. It's brand new. No one has ever seen this before, and if you guys want to, you can once again check the show notes down below and see what the brawl is all about if you want a little bit more detail. But it's called Monster Smash, and it says it'll catch on in a flash, take control of one of the Witchwood's powerful monsters and misfits. Let's see who rules the Witchwood. So it's a brand new brawl, and it's part of the Hollow's End Hearthstone event for 2018. And there is no special pack reward for this, unfortunately. Some people were speculating that you would get like a Witchwood pack, right? Because that's themed for Halloween. But unfortunately, no. You just get a usual classic pack. So how it works is you click the Brawl button, and it basically just queues you up, and you get a random monster from the Witchwood Monster Hunt. And you'll be given the same deck your hero uses in Monster Hunt, as well as the same hero power. So it's Soul Thief, Blood Witch, Greta, Brushwood, Shutterwalk, Plague Master, Ransel, and Chubabron, I think. I played a little bit, but the decks are pretty dumb, in my opinion, and not that fun to play. It's nice that it is like random, though, so you don't really have to build your own deck. But I wish I could have chosen a class and then gone into it instead of just going completely random so I could get quests and stuff done. But I played a handful of matches, and for some reason, the only minions, or the only monsters I ended up getting were Shutterwalk and the Chupacabron. Chupacabron is basically just a bunch of cheap-ish minions, and his hero power is 1 mana, and it's give +1/+1 to a minion, and then also give it lifesteal. And then Shutterwalk has a passive ability where it's just battle cries trigger twice. So his deck has a lot of battle cries, a lot of cold light oracles, a lot of like mad bombers and like matter bombers too as well. And for some reason, I queued probably, I want to say maybe 5 to 6 games. And for some reason, I only got those 2. I haven't heard anything if the actual like brawl is bugged. But I wouldn't be surprised if the brawl is actually bugged or something. I don't know. They probably patched it or hotfixed it by now. But it was weird. And then my opponents were the same people. So it was kind of like these mirror matches going on. Probably just the unluckiness of the draw, though. But yeah, so that is the new brawl. It will be around until Sunday, and then it'll be gone. And then next week it will most likely be the solo player content, which is just a PvE mode where you verse the headless horseman. So also check my YouTube as well to see all the gameplay footage of the brawl, because we'll most likely be uploading some episodes and videos on that as well. All right, guys. Lastly, we have probably the biggest article to talk about, and that is the balance changes that came out today, actually. So if you guys didn't know, there were some balance changes that we talked about briefly last Thursday. We didn't know what those balance changes were going to be, and they said that on Monday they would announce what those balance changes are. And they announced them, and they released them actually today. Pretty late, actually, today. I didn't get the patch until about 5 p.m. A lot of people were thinking like, oh yeah, 10 a.m. or something like that. For whatever reason, it didn't end up happening, which I thought was a little strange, because usually the patches are out really early for Hearthstone, but for whatever reason, it just didn't end up happening. The update was pushed out just today. But here is the patch notes for the balance changes, and we'll go through each card one by one and give my initial thoughts to said cards and all that stuff. But briefly, if you guys just want the TLDR, Giggling Inventor went from 5 to 7 mana. Mana Worm went to 1 to 2 mana, and Aviano went to 9 to 10 mana. I should also add that with these changes, what ends up happening is you do not get you will get a full dust refund if you disenchant the cards, but these are not moving to like the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame differences are that you don't have to disenchant the cards and you get full dust. But yeah, so keep that in mind as well, that if you have these cards in either golden or normal, that you would need to manually disenchant them to get full dust value. And it's a rare, which is going to be 100 dust, a common for 40 dust, and a legendary for 1600 dust. So anyway, we can go through each of them one by one. So the first one was Giggling Inventor. And what the official post says is Giggling Inventor is one of the most powerful and popular cards we've ever created. There's virtually no downside to include it in a deck, and because it's neutral, it's played in almost every deck. We think it's important to take risks when making powerful cards, especially when it comes to neutral taunts, given the role they can play in encouraging minion interaction and making games more interesting. However, Giggling Inventor has stepped beyond its intended role. We initially test the card at 6 in both current standard format, as well as with cards that will be released in the future, and felt that its power level was still higher than appropriate for neutral, with no build around requirements. At 7 mana, we expect Giggling will find its way into fewer decks and be less effective in Quest Rogue, while it might remain situationally playable with specific deck archetypes such as Evolved Shaman. So, yeah. This is pretty much, in my opinion, just first impressions. We'll see how the meta shapes up, and we'll probably come back to this in a few weeks or whatever as well. The Giggling Inventor nerf seems to just gut Giggling Inventor. I don't see it being used at all. I think one of the issues that you had with Giggling Inventor, though, is that so this is one of the problems that I've kind of been on rants about, and we've kind of talked about on this podcast as well as in other podcasts as well. But one of the issues that I have with Giggling Inventor is that, or just Giggling Inventor and the reason why it changed and stuff like that is Witchwood, right? Witchwood was not a great expansion, but its new kind of mechanics that were introduced are going to cause serious issues for the next year and a half or however much longer we have until they rotate out. A lot of streamers have complained about this. A lot of content creators have complained about it, and I've definitely seen it, and I definitely see it happening in the games I play, and it kind of is the reason why I don't play Hearthstone as much or as long as I used to, and it's because of the even and odd decks. If you guys don't know, they added 2 cards, Gen Greymane and Baku. And Greymane's effect is that if all the cards in your deck are even, your hero power costs 1. And the Baku is if all your cards in your deck are odd, buff your hero power, right? And it kind of does like a just a card True Heart. So for example, Paladin for 2 mana summons 2 Duders. Garrosh Warrior, when you use your hero power, instead of getting 2 armor, it gains 4. And that's if you have either all odd or odd even, like I briefly mentioned before. Now, the issue that I've always had with Hearthstone, and it's, I think, been an issue for a lot of things, minus the fact that they have an evergreen set, and the classic cards were never really meant, in my opinion, to stay around forever, since there's so many good ones. And even the basic cards as well are just so good, and I don't think they were meant to be in there for that long, is that hero powers have always been a thing that have been just really hard to balance and really, really good with certain classes, right? All the classes' hero powers are incredibly good. Obviously, some of them are better than others, and obviously the synergies that go around them are really, really good, right? And it kind of forces, because of the hero powers, certain archetypes to just always exist, right? Hunter for 2 mana, you do 2 damage to the hero's face, right? What kind of deck are you going to make with that, right? Always aggro, right? Control Warrior, or Warrior, you're going to make Control Warrior because it's basically able to gain life beyond the 30 health pool and stuff like that, right? Like, just certain aspects of the hero powers are just kind of stapled and limit the card design of these things. And so it looks to me, in my opinion, what is happening here is that Giggling Inventor costing 7 mana, not only did they gut the card just in general, I don't think it will see much play, but I think that if they had made it 6 mana, it would have been an okay card to still use, and there were still ways to get around it, like using Mossy Horror and still being able to trade and set up certain things the turn before you think it's going to come out. But the problem is that I feel like in the decks that use Even, it would be very powerful, right? Even Paladin is somewhat on the rise and is still kind of being played, so it can't be played in that type of deck. You're also looking at even Shaman playing this card, and that would be really annoying to play against as well. Those are kind of just my initial thoughts, is that I feel like they gutted it to 7 so that they wouldn't have to deal with it at an even level. And I'll say this here on the podcast, and you guys can quote me on it, because I do feel like that this is going to be an issue. But I almost certainly feel that for the next 2 years, as long as these odd and even decks are going to be around, we're going to have a lot of balance issues. And I feel like, as well as that's why we don't see a lot of innovation in decks. People are still playing even Shamans, people are still playing even Warlock, people are still playing odd Paladin from last expansion, because the decks are so good. It's like, they're really good. The hero power is super good. It's always there for you, right? It never goes away or gets neutralized in any way. And just to be able to gain that much stuff from the get-go of the game is really, really powerful. And I feel like we're going to have a card probably in the next expansion, probably in the next 2 expansions. There's going to be cards that will pop up that go, man, this is really good in this even deck, this is really good in this deck. And Hearthstone's going to have to figure a way to balance those type of things out and figure how to neuter these cards. So for 7 mana, yes, I understand it could still be played in odd decks, but for 7 mana, you're not going to play this in an odd Paladin, which is in the current meta, and you're not going to play this. You might play it in a Control Warrior, but for 7 mana, there's so many better cards that you could play in this or whatever. You can maybe still played in Quest Rogue as well, but it's still definitely gutted a ton. Next up, guys, let me take a drink here again. Next up, and this one actually surprised me a lot, we have Mana Worm. And like I said earlier, Mana Worm will cost now 2 mana instead of 1. And what they officially said about the card is, they said, over time we've been moving away from powerful early game 1-drops like Mana Worm. It can often feel like the outcome of a game is decided by whether Mana Worm was played on turn 1, and if it could be removed quickly by an opponent. Mana Worm has also steered us away from making powerful low-cost mage spells. We'd like Mana Worm to remain an option for decks it synergizes with, while preventing it from being a huge turn 1 threat. At 2 mana, it will be easier to deal with Mana Worm the turn it's played, and it will be harder to buff it with cheap spells early in the match. We still expect it to remain an option in decks that have a heavy focus on cheap spells, but it should be a less appealing option in decks that aren't built with that focus in mind. So I thought this was an interesting choice for what they ended up doing with it. In my opinion, I definitely get where they're coming from, and I have noticed that they've been shying away from earlier one drops and stuff like that, right? One of my biggest complaints with Hearthstone is that the cards that end up being really, really powerful in Hearthstone, people always look at these legendary cards whenever they're announced and they're hyped. Oh man, look at this effect. They're super broken. Oh man, look at this feature. It's pretty crazy. The thing is, though, that a lot of the cards that I don't like in Hearthstone are a lot of the early game minions, right? Righteous Protector, Mana Worm, Northshire Cleric, Dire Mole, right? Cards that are these 1 mana 1/3 cards, which are very early game, Flame Imp as well, that are very, very strong and very, very powerful. And sometimes if you don't draw a weapon at the very start of your game, or you don't draw some type of clear, you're kind of just dead. I've had games like that before. Mana Worm going up to 2, though, I can still see it being played, to be honest. I think it's definitely nerfed, but I think it's definitely still a playable card, and I think they hit the money on this. I would have liked it if maybe they kept it at 1 and reduced the health to 2, possibly. That would be pretty cool, to make it be a little bit cleared, but cleared easier. But I can understand why it's been upgraded from, or nerfed, I should say, to 2 mana. But overall, it's still a very powerful card. Just my initial impressions are like, would I rather have this in my mage deck as a 2-drop, or would I want to have another 2-drop in my deck? No, I'd still want Mana Worm, right? So overall, I think that it's an interesting nerf. I definitely will say that Mana Worm will still be played to some extent, and we'll see if it's auto-included in every mage deck. I want to say it probably will be, though. And we'll also have to see what happens, because they said that, they steered us away from making powerful, low-cost mage spells. We've heard this before, right? Rogue, Blade Fury, right? And steered us away from awesome weapons. But, we'll see. There might be some synergies here that make it so that powerful low-cost mage spells synergize really, really well with Mana Worm, beyond the fact that it's a Mana Worm, and it synergizes with spells in general. So we'll have to see what happens. This could either go the same way as like Undertaker, or this could just be something that, it is what it is. So, and it's still played often. So, yeah. Lastly, we have a card that was nerfed specifically for Wild, which I've been playing a lot of Wild lately, and that is Aviana. And Aviana will cost 10 mana up from 9, so a nerf as well. Aviana is now a 10 mana 5/5 legendary, and it says your minions cost 1. You guys didn't know that this was played a lot in Druid, where it was called the Aviana Coon combo, where you could play Aviana for 9, and then you could play Coon the Forgotten and restore 10 mana crystals. Because Coon cost 1, then you restore 10 mana crystals, then you could play like Malagos and a bunch of other like combo pieces to basically just like destroy the board. But it says changing Aviana to 10 mana means it will no longer be possible to play Aviana and Coon the Forgotten King, right, like I just mentioned, on the same turn without some additional help from cards like Innervate or the Coin. It also means Juicy Psych Melon will no longer draw both Aviana and Coon, right, because that was a card that drew a 7 mana, 8 mana, 9 mana, and 10 mana card from your deck. This should make the combo Aviana Coon produce less consistent, while still allowing decks that use combos to exist for players that enjoy them. I don't really have much to say about this. I'm mostly a standard player, but I've been dabbling in Wild for a bit, just because it's easier to gain ranks, and it seems to be more fun, to be honest, to play in Wild right now, since I don't really like how standard is. So I've been grinding in that, but I have come across this deck, and it's really annoying. I don't really have much else to say about it. I'm not a Wild player, and I'm not a Wild expert on this, so I don't really know how this will shape the meta, but from like just initially from what Hearthstone has said here, seems like a good change. And yeah, seems like it will be something that guts the meta. To be honest, though, I don't really see Combo Druid happening a lot in Wild. A lot of decks I see in Wild are just buffed up versions of, once again, Even and Odd Paladin, Even Shaman, Odd Rogue, stuff like that is what I see a lot in Wild, but I don't really see a lot of this Aviana Coon combo. But when I do see it, it is very, very annoying. So yeah. So the last article that I actually have for you guys is just something that was brought up recently, and it's not on the show notes, unfortunately, so I do apologize. I will try to add them later. But Twitch has decided to sponsor another Hearthstone-like event. that you guys can participate and check out. I believe registration is still open for it at this time of the recording, but if you want to, you got to register pretty fast, because also it's, you're already like a day or two behind at this point as well, right? So it is called the Hearthstone Gold Rush, and what it says is, with the return of Hollow's End and Dual Class Arena, Twitch is excited to present the Hearthstone Gold Rush beginning on October 17th. The challenge invites all Twitch streamers to participate in a race to obtain 5,000 gold on a new account during Hollow's End and compete for your share of 25,000. So how does the event work? You have to create a new account before the Hollow's End event begins on October 17th. You're free to clear your tutorial and get your classes to level 10 off stream before Hollow's End, but only through solo adventure. So, you can't be gaining gold and stuff like that on your account in any other way. At 12 p.m., start your gold rush with games in play mode and arena. Games with friends and within Tavern Brawl will be ineligible. So, I believe also you're not allowed to do quests. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that was one of the rules. And then you need to stream all gameplay related to completing the challenge on the Twitch profile linked on your account that you register on this site. And the first person to reach 5,000 gold will win the grand prize of 15,000, with 7,000 and 3,000 being granted to the second and third players to complete the challenge. So, yeah, all matches need to be streamed on your Twitch account, starting from when you've basically made your account, right? So you can make your account, get your characters level 10, and then you link your Twitch to the registration site, and from there you need to stream all your games and also upload VODs of the games. If at any point the VODs aren't uploaded, you're basically disqualified. So pretty cool event. I suck at Arena, so obviously I didn't enter it. But if you are a Twitch streamer, you're about a day behind, 2 days behind at this point. So it's probably not worth it to register for the event now and try to go for it. I've seen some streamers already be at like 2,000 gold on this new account by just farming arenas. So it's it's pretty crazy. But that's just a little event. And if you see streamers streaming longer than usual or going ham harder than usual, or streaming without cams because they need to just chill and play, that event is there. But that wraps up the news for this week in Hearthstone, guys. I appreciate it for you guys coming out and stuff like that. A lot of articles actually this week, and we had a lot of news. But I just want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening as always, and hopefully that these podcasts can go a little bit faster and be a little bit more condensed for you guys' busy schedules as well. I just wanted to quickly just plug everything. Like I said at the top of the show, we are now on Spotify, so if you want to, you can go to Spotify and search up This Week in Hearthstone and find this podcast for you people on audio. If you're listening, you can go subscribe to that so you don't have to worry about anything from there. You can also follow me on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/RyanKubo. We stream This Week in Hearthstone every Thursday evening at 10 p.m. PST. If you guys ever want to come by, see what I look like, or just chill and be in the VOD, or see how the recordings go as well. We usually play some games afterwards as well, so you guys are more than welcome to go check that out. I also try to stream on Twitch about every other night for a few hours as well, playing games like Hearthstone as well as other games with friends, etc. You can follow my personal Twitter at twitter.com/RyanKubo, my Instagram at instagram.com/RyanKubo, and all VODs of the podcast are uploaded to my YouTube as well in raw format at youtube.com/SHIGEOS, Shigeos Twitch TV. You can also follow This Week in Hearthstone on Twitter. That's twitter.com/TWI Hearthstone. So This Week in Hearthstone. You guys can go check out all the updates there. Thank you guys, though, for This Week in Hearthstone, for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you guys. Been having a lot of fun with this podcast, and it's been cool to see some listeners and subscribers come from my other podcast ventures, as well as the other platforms that I run. So thanks so much for hanging out, guys. Until next week, I will see you then. Take care, guys. Peace.